The world teaches you to fight back, to scream louder, to prove your strength. But I'll tell you the truth. Those who shout the most are often the weakest inside. You want to dominate, outsmart, rise above those who try to pull you down, then don't fight them. Fool them. With silence, with presence, with mastery. Because real power isn't loud, it's quiet, focused, unshakable. And in silence, you become invisible to fools and unstoppable to enemies. Let me show you how to turn your silence into your greatest weapon. Rule 1, be silent, observe everything. Most people believe that power comes from being loud, speaking first, interrupting others, making noise to be heard. But I learned early in my life that true power is silent. It's not in your volume, it's in your vision. The man who talks too much exposes himself. He gives away his thoughts, his fears, his intentions. He doesn't even realize that with every word, he's giving you clues to his mindset. That's why I don't speak to impress. I stay silent to understand. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. When you walk into a room, don't rush to be seen. Don't rush to speak. Instead, let your energy be still. Let your eyes do the work. Watch the way people move. Listen to how they speak. Study their tone, their posture, their reactions. People reveal who they truly are in the little things. When they think no one's paying attention, that's when they show you everything. You see, most people are too busy trying to be noticed. They want to prove themselves, but the moment you try to prove, you've already lost control. You've handed over your energy to others, but when you remain silent, you become unpredictable. And that makes people uncomfortable because they don't know what you're thinking. And when they don't know what you're thinking, they don't know what you'll do next. That's power. I've watched fighters lose before they even throw a punch because they get emotional. They let the crowd, the opponent, the noise distract them. But I didn't need to yell to dominate. I didn't need to shout to win. I studied, I watched, I observed everything, how the opponent moved his foot, how he breathed the moment his shoulders dropped. That's when I knew, that's when I struck. When you observe long enough, your response becomes precise. You don't waste energy, you act with clarity, and that is far more dangerous than blind aggression. In life, it's the same. You'll meet people who try to provoke you, who try to make you speak, who bait you into arguments or distractions. Don't fall for it. Keep your energy inward. Let your silence build presence, because the more you listen, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more powerful your next move becomes. Remember, don't be quick to talk. Be quick to notice. Be quick to reflect. Be quick to adapt. The world belongs not to the loud, but to the silent ones who see everything while saying nothing. Stay calm, stay quiet, stay focused. That's how you win. Not by showing your strength early, but by hiding it until it's time to strike. Watch everything, speak little, and when it's time, move like lightning. Rule 2, master emotional control. People will test you, life will push you, and your enemies, oh, they will try everything to drag you out of your peace. They will insult you, challenge you, laugh at you, and try to make you angry. Because once you lose control of your emotions, they don't have to fight you. They've already won. You've given them power over your mind. You've handed them the remote to your reactions. That is the mistake of the undisciplined. They believe emotions are strength, but I'll tell you this, anger is not power, fear is not clarity, desperation is not direction. Emotion, when left unchecked, is a wild animal. It will destroy more than it protects. I trained my body every day, yes, but more than that, I trained my mind. Because the body is easy to control once the mind is mastered. I didn't let anger tell me when to strike. I didn't let fear tell me when to retreat. I learned to see the emotion without becoming the emotion. When someone insulted me, I paused. When they tried to provoke me, I observed. That pause, that stillness, that is where your power lives. That moment of restraint is not weakness, it's dominance over self. And when you have that, no enemy can touch you. They'll wonder why their words don't shake you, why their insults don't move you, why their games don't work, and that's when they become confused. That's when you take their power. You don't win by shouting louder. You win by refusing to be shaken. You see, a person controlled by anger is like a puppet. One small pull, an insult, a lie, a failure, and they're dancing to someone else's tune. But a person who remains calm, they don't dance. They choose their movements. They respond with clarity, with precision, with intention. People think reacting is strength. It's not. Strength is in the restraint, in the ability to say, I will not give you access to my peace. In the middle of chaos, the one who stays calm becomes the leader. The one who doesn't panic becomes the strategist. And the one who doesn't fight emotionally becomes the master. When you control your emotions, you control your energy. When you control your energy, you control your outcome. You become untouchable, not because you're stronger than everyone else, but because you're stronger than your impulses. That is the real fight. That is the true martial art, conquering the war within before engaging in the war outside. So the next time you're provoked, remember this. Silence is not surrender. It's superiority. Stillness is not fear. It's focus. Hold your center. Let the storm pass around you. And when the time is right, move with the force of clarity, not chaos. That is how you win, not just the battle, but your peace. Rule 3, speak only when it shakes the room. People think talking makes them powerful. That saying more makes them important. That the louder you speak, the more you're respected. But here's what I learned. Words lose value when they're thrown carelessly. A master doesn't waste his breath. A master doesn't speak to be heard. He speaks to be remembered. That's the difference. You see, when you speak all the time, your words become noise. People start to ignore them. They tune you out. You lose the weight behind what you say. But when you stay silent, truly silent, when you study the room, observe the energy, let your silence fill the space, then when you do speak, everyone stops to listen. That's not an accident. That's intention. That's power. Speaking less doesn't mean you're afraid. It means your voice has purpose. It means your words are chosen like arrows, not thrown like stones. When I enter a room, I don't fill it with noise. I let my presence speak first. Because when your presence is strong, you don't need many words. And when your silence has weight, even a whisper becomes thunder. People feel it. They lean in. They sense something different. That's how I lived. That's how I trained. And that's how I dominated. Not by being the loudest, but by making every word count like a strike in battle. But this isn't just about talking. This is about energy, about discipline. It's about knowing when to speak and why you're speaking. Ask yourself, are you speaking to impress? Or are you speaking to express truth? Are your words for performance or for precision? Because if your words don't come from clarity, they come from ego, and ego is always trying to prove. But clarity has nothing to prove. It speaks only when it's time, and it speaks only what's needed. That's why it hits so hard. That's why people remember it long after you've gone quiet again. Let me give you something to think about. The sword that stays in the sheath the longest is often the sharpest. The warrior who waits is not weak. He is wise. He knows when to strike. Your voice is the same. Don't use it just because it's there. Use it because it's needed. Use it because it matters. And if it doesn't shake the room, don't say it. I've seen men talk endlessly, trying to prove their worth, trying to dominate with noise. But I could see their fear in every sentence. I could see their need to be accepted, to be validated. And I knew in that moment they were weak. Not because they didn't have strength, but because they had no silence inside them, no stillness, no discipline. A man without silence is a man without control, and a man without control is a slave to his words. He'll say anything to be liked. He'll react to everything just to feel involved. That is not mastery. That is desperation wearing a disguise. Do you want to be respected? Then speak like your words are rare. Speak like each one has value. Speak like your silence is a weapon and your voice is the blade. That's how you earn attention. Not by begging for it, but by commanding it without trying. You see, when you're silent, people wonder what you're thinking, but when you talk too much, they already know, and worse, they stop caring. Don't let your mouth reveal everything your mind has worked to build. In martial arts, we don't move unless it's necessary. Every strike, every block, every step, it has purpose. It's measured. It's timed. It's not flashy. It's effective. Do the same with your words. Speak with purpose, not noise. Speak with timing, not impulse. Speak with clarity, not confusion. And if you're unsure, stay silent. Because even your silence, when intentional, speaks louder than words spoken in desperation. I've been in rooms with the most powerful men, and the ones who impressed me most weren't the loudest. They were the calmest, the ones who listened more than they spoke, the ones whose eyes told stories and whose words felt like thunder when they finally opened their mouths. That's the kind of power you want. Not attention, not applause, but respect. And respect is earned by the weight of your silence and the impact of your voice. So train your tongue like you train your fists. Don't let it move without purpose. Don't let it speak without meaning, because every word is a strike, and every strike leaves a mark. Make sure yours are remembered. Speak only when it shakes the room, and until then, let your silence do the talking. Rule 4, never let them know your next move. A tiger doesn't roar before it hunts. A lion doesn't announce itself before it strikes, and neither should you. The more unpredictable you are, the more control you hold. The moment someone can read your next move, they can prepare for it, stop it, or use it against you. But if they're guessing, they're hesitating. And if they're hesitating, you're already winning. Power is not just about strength. It's about mystery. It's about keeping your enemy blind while you see everything. When I trained in martial arts, I didn't just train my body. I trained in strategy. I studied movement, timing, anticipation. The worst thing a fighter can do is become predictable. The second your opponent knows what's coming, he adapts, he blocks, he counters. That's why I moved like water, flowing, shifting, adapting with no fixed form. One moment fast, the next still. One moment direct, the next deceptive. Confusion is a weapon, and silence is its perfect partner. In life, you must learn to do the same. Do not reveal your plans to people who don't need to know. Do not show your hand to those waiting to use it against you. There is strength in stillness, but there is power in mystery. Keep your goals private. Keep your steps quiet. Let them think they understand you. Then surprise them when it matters most. That's how I lived. That's how I fought. That's how I stayed 10 steps ahead in a world that's always watching. Understand this. People will study you, some with admiration, others with envy. They will try to copy you, match your rhythm, predict your actions. The moment they do, you become vulnerable. But when you hold back, when you don't show them everything, you keep control. When you don't react the way they expect, you break their strategy. They don't know whether to prepare for a punch or a pause. That's where you win, in the silence between their expectations and your reality. Most people want to show off. They talk about every move they plan to make. They broadcast their dreams, their achievements, their next steps. Why? Because they crave validation. They want applause before the victory. But that need to be seen, that hunger for attention, becomes their weakness. It makes them transparent. It makes them easy to read. And what is easy to read is easy to defeat. I don't care how skilled you are. If your opponent knows what you're about to do, they don't need to be stronger. They just need to be ready. And that's enough to beat you. That's why I trained in silence. That's why I studied in private. That's why I didn't show off my skill until it was too late for my opponent to react. The element of surprise isn't a trick, it's a philosophy. It's a way of moving through life where you don't reveal your full potential until the moment you need it most, and by then, it's already over. This doesn't just apply in combat. This is true in business, in relationships, in your personal growth. The moment you let someone know your every intention, you give them the chance to influence it. Sometimes they'll talk you out of it. Sometimes they'll copy it. Sometimes they'll sabotage it. But when you keep your move hidden, you stay in control. People can't block what they can't see. They can't ruin what they don't know about. And they can't compete with a plan that isn't visible. So be calm, be deliberate, be unreadable. Let others make noise. Let them talk about their next step, their goals, their dreams. You move in silence. You move with intention. And when the time is right, you strike with everything you've been preparing in silence. That's what makes impact. That's what shakes the world. Not the noise before the move, but the move itself, so sharp, so sudden, so precise, that no one saw it coming. They will try to predict you. They will watch you. They will analyze your habits, your emotions, your actions. That's fine. Give them a version of you to observe. Let them believe they know you. Let them think they've figured you out. Meanwhile, your real power is building quietly in the background. Your next move is already forming, but only in your mind, not in their sight. And when it arrives, it will be unstoppable. Because preparation in silence always outperforms performance in noise. I've always said, be water, my friend. But people misunderstand that. Water doesn't just flow, it adapts. It takes the shape of whatever it enters. It is patient, but it is powerful. It wears down mountains and breaks through rock, not by force, but by persistence. It never announces where it's going, but it always finds a way through. You must do the same. Move like water, not loud, not predictable, not fixed. Adapt, disappear, reappear. And when they think they've finally figured you out, change the rhythm. Because in life, as in combat, victory doesn't belong to the one who is strongest. It belongs to the one who cannot be tracked, cannot be predicted, cannot be outmaneuvered. Let them guess. Let them assume. Let them speak on your behalf. While they talk, you build. While they plot, you prepare. While they chase shadows, you walk forward in silence. That's how legends are made, not by being seen all the time, but by showing up when it matters most and leaving no room for doubt. So I'll say it one final time. Never let them know your next move. Let them believe they know everything about you. Meanwhile, hold your silence. Trust your preparation. Hide your fire. And when the time comes, let your actions be so sharp, so sudden, so effective, they won't even realize the war already ended. That is dominance. That is mastery. That is the way of the silent warrior. Rule 5. Patience is your greatest weapon. Everyone wants to act fast. Everyone wants instant results, instant recognition, instant power. But the truth? The real masters, they wait. Not because they're slow, not because they're weak, but because they understand that timing is more dangerous than speed. Patience is not laziness. Patience is precision. When you act too soon, you give away your advantage. When you wait until the right moment, you strike with clarity, with force, with silence, and nothing can stop you. In martial arts, rushing is the first sign of fear. I see a fighter bouncing, swinging wildly, throwing everything at once, and I already know. He's scared. He's trying to win fast because he doesn't trust his endurance. He wants to finish the battle quickly because he's afraid of what happens if it lasts too long. But the calm one, the one who stands firm, who watches, who waits, that is the dangerous one. That is the fighter who sees everything before it happens. That is the man who finishes battles without ever breaking a sweat. This world has taught you that faster is better. That if you don't act immediately, someone else will beat you. That if you don't respond now, you'll lose your chance. But I tell you, what's meant for you will never pass you by. You don't need to rush destiny. You don't need to chase validation. You need to prepare patiently. Train in the dark, practice when no one is watching. Let your skills sharpen quietly, like a blade being honed in silence. Because when the right moment comes and you are ready, you will cut through every obstacle in your way. not because you moved fast, but because you moved correctly. I've seen fighters throw everything in the first few seconds, thinking they'll win with aggression. But when the opponent doesn't fall, when the noise doesn't work, they panic. They burn out. They become weak. They forget that the fight isn't won in the opening seconds. It's won in the moments of stillness. In the moments when you see the rhythm of your enemy, you read his breathing, you understand his habits. That takes patience. And when you finally move, you don't move wildly, you move perfectly. That is power. That is how you break someone without breaking yourself. You see, patience is not passive. It's active discipline. It's the art of holding your energy, holding your fire, holding your reaction until it's fully aligned with the right moment. The foolish man reacts out of impulse. The wise man waits out of power. There's a storm inside him, but it's not out of control. It's waiting for direction. That is what separates the ordinary from the legendary. It's not just how hard you hit. It's when you choose to strike. In life, you'll face pressure. People will mock your stillness. They'll question your silence. They'll say, "Why aren't you speaking? Why aren't you moving?" And they'll try to drag you into their noise. Don't fall for it. Let them run around trying to prove themselves. Let them exhaust their energy early. You stay centered, you stay focused, you stay calm. Because when the time comes and they've emptied themselves, you will still be full of power. That is when your patience becomes your weapon. That is when your silence turns into dominance. A true warrior doesn't fight every battle. He chooses the ones that matter. He lets some things go. He walks away from certain insults, not because he can't respond, but because he knows that responding isn't worth it. That energy is better used elsewhere. He doesn't need to win every moment. He needs to win the war. And to win the war, you must know how to wait. You must know how to let time do the work that force cannot. Think about water. It doesn't destroy the rock with aggression. It breaks it down over time, quietly, patiently, consistently. You must be the same. Don't rush to prove your value. Don't panic when others seem to be ahead. What they built in a hurry will fall in a moment. What you build with patience will stand forever, because patience builds depth. Patience builds strength that isn't just for show. It's real. It's unshakable. There were times in my life when I wanted to rush, times when I was underestimated, overlooked, doubted, and yes, the fire in me wanted to explode. But I knew that if I moved too soon, I would burn myself out. So I waited, I trained, I prepared in silence, I mastered every detail, and when I returned, no one could stop me. Not because I was loud, but because I had become unbreakable through patience. That's what most people don't understand. The waiting is the training. The stillness is the sharpening. Don't ever underestimate the power of a man who waits. He's not wasting time. He's storing power. Patience is a shield and a sword. It protects you from reacting to the wrong battles, and when the right one comes, it arms you with unmatched clarity. While others rush into the fire, you will walk through it untouched. While they burn out, you will still be rising. That is the power of patience, not weakness, not delay, but dominance through discipline. So I'll leave you with this. Be patient, but not passive. Be calm, but not careless. Don't wait because you're afraid. Wait because you are calculating. Let the world move fast. Let them brag, let them show off, let them seek approval. You move with quiet purpose. You prepare without announcement. You grow without noise. And when the time comes, strike once and end it all. That is the art of patience. That is the way of the master. Rule 6. Win without a fight. The highest level of combat is not when you break your opponent's bones. It's when you break their spirit without ever laying a hand. True mastery is not measured by how well you fight, but by how well you avoid the fight entirely and still win. That's real power. That's what they don't teach you in the streets or in most dojos, because everyone wants to throw punches, everyone wants to be seen swinging. But the most dangerous warrior is the one who doesn't need to strike. He controls the battle with his mind, his energy, and his presence alone. I've said it many times before, the art of fighting without fighting. People laughed when they heard that. They didn't understand. They thought it was a clever phrase, but to me, it was a philosophy, a way of living. Because if you truly know yourself, if you've truly trained your mind, your spirit, your body, then you realize most battles are invitations, traps, tests, and the moment you respond without thinking, you've stepped into someone else's game. But if you can stay still, if you can stay centered, if you can walk away without fear or loss, you've already won. You see, most people confuse noise with strength. They think shouting is confidence. They think aggression is power. But that's not power. That's desperation. That's emotion leaking out because they don't know how to contain it. A real fighter, no, a real master, doesn't walk around looking for fights. He walks through life with such calm intensity that no one wants to fight him. That's control. That's presence. That's a kind of power that doesn't require a demonstration. It simply is. I've walked into rooms where everyone was talking tough, flexing, boasting, trying to intimidate. And I didn't say a word. I didn't posture. I didn't need to. Because the man who knows what he's capable of doesn't need to advertise it. He doesn't need to fight to prove it. His silence says it all, and the room feels it. That tension, that discomfort people get when they realize you don't react like them, that's your advantage. That's your weapon. Imagine this. Two men arguing, both yelling, both reacting. It looks like chaos. No one is listening, no one is learning, no one is winning. Now imagine a third man, calm, silent, still. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't step into their madness. And because of that, both men start watching him. They wonder why he's different. They question their own actions. That man, without saying a word, has already won. That is the art of non-reactive power. That is what I trained for. That is what I lived by. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to answer every insult. When you train your mind to rise above reactions, you become untouchable. Let them call you names. Let them push your buttons. Let them try to make you angry. Your power is not in reacting. It's in choosing not to. It's in staying so grounded, so unshakable that no one can reach your center. And once they see they can't move you, they lose. That's when they realize they were never fighting you. They were fighting their own ego, and they lost. Look back at history. The greatest victories were not always won on the battlefield. They were won in the mind, in the spirit. They were won through strategy, patience, and presence. A single word can end a war. A single look can disarm an enemy. A single choice to stay silent can protect your peace, your dignity, your future. But most people don't understand this because they want the quick win, the applause, the gotcha moment. That's not mastery. That's ego dressing up as strength. Don't fall for it. You are not here to impress. You are here to ascend. I didn't train to hurt people. I trained to master myself, my body, yes. But more than that, my mind, my thoughts, my emotions. The enemy was never out there. It was always inside. That voice that said, hit back. That feeling that said, prove them wrong. That temptation to react, to respond, to fight. I had to defeat that first. And once I did, the world changed. Because now, I wasn't fighting anyone. I was walking through life as a master, not of others, but of myself. And once you have that, nothing can shake you, not words, not looks, not attacks. You see them coming and you stay still. That is the art. That is the way. So how do you win without a fight? Here's how. You don't show your weakness. You don't rise to every challenge. You don't let people know they've affected you. Instead, you build your power inside. You train when no one is watching. You let your silence grow roots. You let your calm speak volumes. And when someone tries to provoke you, you observe, not react. When someone disrespects you, you evaluate, not retaliate. You move with intention, not emotion. And when the time comes, if it truly comes, you act with such precision, such power, such clarity, that the fight ends before it begins. But the truth is, 90% of battles can be avoided, not because you run, but because you rise, because you've outgrown them, because you've already seen the outcome, and because you've learned that not every battle is worth your energy. That's wisdom, that's dominance, that's how you protect your peace and still win. Remember this, it takes strength to throw a punch. It takes more strength to hold it back. It takes discipline to respond, but it takes greatness to remain silent and still move forward with power. You don't need to be feared to be respected. You need to be centered. You don't need to fight to win. You need to understand the man who can win without fighting. He is the true master. He is the one who cannot be defeated. So I'll say it one final time. The greatest victories are the quietest. They happen in the moments no one sees. In your decision not to react. In your choice to protect your peace. In your refusal to let someone else control your energy. That's where true power lives. That's where the real fight is won. Not with fists, not with words, but with mastery of the self. Win without a fight. That's not weakness, it's evolution. 7. Dominate without being seen. You think power is in being noticed, in being loud, in standing in the spotlight, commanding attention. But I will tell you this, and listen carefully. Power isn't in being seen. Power is in being felt, in being so focused, so disciplined, so deeply in control that your influence stretches into a room even when you're not there. That's not magic. That's mastery. That's what I trained for. That's what I became. The kind of presence that didn't need to be introduced because silence already whispered my name. When I was younger, I thought strength meant standing out, that I had to prove myself, show off my skill, dominate the moment with force. But as I grew, I realized the greatest power is invisible. It moves beneath the surface, like the current of deep water. You can't see it, but when it moves, it changes everything. The weak chase attention. The strong command respect without chasing it. They dominate not by showing their strength, but by showing restraint. And the truly wise, they dominate without being seen at all. In martial arts, the most dangerous opponent is not the one who shouts and shows his muscles. It's the one who stands calmly, the one who breathes without tension, the one whose eyes don't reveal anything. You don't know what he's thinking. You don't know what he's planning. And that silence, that mystery, that's fear, that's power. Because what you can't read, you can't prepare for. What you can't see, you can't stop. Now ask yourself, why do you want to be seen? For approval, for validation, for applause? That's ego talking, and ego is always loud, but truth is quiet. Mastery is invisible. Think of bamboo. It bends, but never breaks. It doesn't shout, but it stands through the strongest storms. You must become like that. Let your presence be calm, your actions deliberate, your movements quiet, but your impact undeniable. You don't need to tell people what you're doing. Let them wonder. Let them doubt. Let them think you've disappeared. And while they're watching others, while they're chasing applause, you're building in silence. You're mastering the details. You're studying the game. And when you emerge, it's too late for them to react because you didn't show your progress. You became the progress. That's how you dominate, without noise, without warning, without permission. Most people live for reaction. They post, they brag, they show every step. They want people to clap for the process. But I trained differently. I trained for the outcome. I didn't need claps. I needed results. I didn't need an audience. I needed excellence. And that shift in mindset is what made me unstoppable. Because when you don't need to be seen, you become impossible to target. They can't sabotage what they don't know exists. They can't compete with what they can't predict. Sometimes the strongest move is the one no one notices. The choice to walk away. The decision to remain silent. The ability to rise above without announcing it. When I moved in silence, people didn't know what I was preparing. They couldn't measure my energy. They didn't see my breakthroughs coming. And when I acted, it felt like an explosion. But it wasn't sudden. It was strategic, built in the shadows, forged in the silence, refined in the solitude that most people are too afraid to embrace. You want to dominate? Then learn to be still. Learn to let others take the spotlight while you sharpen your edge in the dark. Learn to let them talk while you watch. Let them burn out trying to be seen while you store your power where no one can touch it. True influence comes from the inside. It doesn't demand attention. It commands it when it matters. And that kind of power is timeless. Because people may forget what you said. They may forget what you did. But they will never forget how your presence made them feel. And when you learn to affect a room without ever raising your voice, you've already won. I've always believed, don't just train to fight, train to feel, train to read energy, train to sense the room, train to move through life with such awareness that you never need to shout. Your silence should make noise. Your absence should raise questions. Your calm should unsettle chaos. That's the level you must reach, where your inner peace is so deep that no enemy can pull you into their storm. And when the world finally sees what you've become, let it be a surprise. Let them wonder how they never noticed your rise. Let them question how you stayed so quiet and still came out ahead. Let them realize too late that while they were performing, you were preparing. While they were being seen, you were becoming unstoppable. That is silent domination. That is the way of the warrior who doesn't just survive, but leads without ever raising a hand. So here is your final lesson. Don't fight to be seen. Train until you no longer care. Become so focused, so calm, so disciplined that visibility becomes irrelevant. The real power lies not in proving, but in preparing, not in performance, but in presence. Move like a shadow, strike like lightning, and disappear before they can understand what just happened. You don't need noise, you don't need a stage, you don't need anyone to clap for you. You just need discipline, awareness, and patience. Let the world talk, let them underestimate, let them forget. You keep building, you keep rising quietly, relentlessly, invisibly, until one day you are everywhere and they won't even know how you did it. That's what it means to dominate without being seen. 8. Let stillness be your loudest power. In a world that's always moving, always talking, always rushing, you want to stand out? Then learn to be still. Learn to be unmoved while everything around you spins in chaos. Most people are addicted to motion, addicted to noise, addicted to doing. But I'll tell you something most will never understand. True power, real, unshakable power, is found in stillness. It's in that place where the world can't touch you, where time slows down, and where your mind becomes sharp like a blade forged in quiet fire. When I trained, it wasn't just about speed or strength. It wasn't about how fast I could punch or how hard I could kick. It was about how deeply I could focus, how still I could become under pressure, how I could remain calm even with fists flying at my face. Because the moment I lost my stillness, I lost control. And when you lose control, you don't fight, you flail, you don't respond, you react. And a man who reacts without stillness is a man who loses before the fight even begins. Stillness is not the absence of action, it's the control behind it. It's the force that guides every move with clarity instead of chaos. The untrained mind wants to do everything, say everything, fix everything, prove everything. But the trained mind, the disciplined soul, he chooses his actions like a master swordsman chooses his strikes, with patience, with purpose, with precision that only comes through stillness. You ever watch a predator before it strikes? It doesn't run in circles. It doesn't announce itself. It waits, silent, unblinking, completely focused. That stillness before the strike is more powerful than the strike itself. It tells you everything, that it knows, that it's ready, that it has already won. You need that in life. You need that in your energy. People should feel your stillness before you speak. They should feel your composure before you even act. That's power that doesn't need to introduce itself. That's the power that lives in your presence, not your performance. Look around. Everyone's busy. Busy being busy. Busy talking. Busy reacting. They wake up and jump straight into the noise, checking their phones, answering to the world, chasing validation. But a master? He doesn't start his day with noise. He starts it with silence. He reclaims his mind before the world touches it. He doesn't allow the chaos to enter his space. He builds a fortress of stillness around himself, and because of that, he's unbreakable. When I walk into a room, I don't need to dominate with volume. I let my stillness speak. And it does. People feel it. They don't know why, but they sense something different. That calm energy, that steady breath, that quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove anything because I've already proven it to myself. That is what shakes the room. Not shouting, not posturing, but a stillness so strong it silences everything around it. Stillness is not taught in schools. It's not trending online because it's not flashy, it's not loud, it doesn't get applause. But it is the foundation of every great warrior, every great thinker, every great leader. It is the anchor in the storm, the eye in the hurricane. When everything is spinning, stillness keeps you centered. And from that center, you act with purpose instead of panic. That's what gives your actions weight. That's what makes people remember you, not because of how much you moved, but because of how still you stayed when others fell apart. You want to outsmart your enemies? Don't just move better, be still better. When they yell, you breathe. When they rush, you observe. When they fight for attention, you master your presence. And when they finally crash, confused and exhausted, you're still there. Calm, sharp, focused, ready to move with force that feels like thunder because it came from silence. Let me tell you something deep. Stillness is the doorway to mastery. When you are still, you hear the truth louder. You see what others miss. You begin to feel energy, rhythm, intention. You read people without needing words. You see motives hidden behind smiles. You sense weakness behind arrogance. You begin to lead without force because your stillness becomes magnetic. That's the level you must reach, where people come to you not because you scream, but because you are the only one who is not. There will be times when people mistake your stillness for weakness. Let them. That's part of the game. Let them think you're inactive. Let them think you're slow. While they burn themselves out trying to outmove you, you will outlast them. Because stillness is not inactivity, it's control. And control, my friend, wins the long game, always. So how do you build stillness? Simple, but not easy. You train your mind. You sit with your thoughts instead of running from them. You learn to be alone without being lonely. You observe your emotions instead of becoming them. You breathe before you act. You watch before you speak. And every day you reclaim your peace like a warrior returning to his sword. That stillness over time becomes your greatest weapon, not a reaction, not a defense, but a state of being that cannot be shaken. Don't let the world rush you. Don't let chaos pull you. Don't let noise define you. Let your stillness become your identity. Let it lead your steps. Let it hold your decisions. Let it be the space between provocation and response where wisdom grows. Because in that space, in that silence, in that steady breath, you become untouchable. So remember this. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need to rush to be great. You don't need to react to be strong. Be still. Be calm. Be aware. And when the time comes to move, you'll move not with noise, but with the force of 1,000 storms hidden in silence. That is how stillness becomes your loudest power. That is how you rise above the noise and dominate, not by being louder, but by becoming immovable. 9. Control the inner battle, and the outer world follows. Everyone wants to master the world, conquer enemies, earn respect, gain power. But let me tell you a secret I learned through sweat, solitude, and stillness. Before you can control anything out there, you must first master what's in here, your mind, your emotions, your impulses. Because the greatest enemy is not the man in front of you, it's the war within. And if you don't win that battle, the outside world will break you again and again. I've seen the strongest men crumble, not from a punch, not from defeat, but from their own minds. Their thoughts turned against them. Their emotions hijacked their clarity. One minute they were warriors, the next slaves to fear, anger, doubt. Why? Because they never trained inward. They only trained what could be seen. They built muscle but never discipline. They developed speed but never self-awareness. And without inner mastery, no amount of outer strength will save you when pressure comes. When I trained, I didn't just throw kicks and punches. I trained in silence, in reflection, in stillness. I watched my fears. I observed my reactions. I questioned my own anger. I broke down my pride. That was the real training, the invisible battle. And every time I chose calm over rage, clarity over confusion, discipline over impulse, I won. I won without anyone knowing. But those inner victories, they shaped everything. They gave me the ability to walk into any room, any arena, any storm, and remain unmoved. People think control means dominating others. Real control means not being controlled by anything, especially your own chaos. When you're angry, can you still think clearly? When you're afraid, can you still move forward? When you're insulted, can you remain silent? When things fall apart, can you stay grounded? These are the tests, not the ones in the ring, the ones in your soul, the ones no one sees but you feel deeply every day. Let me ask you, have you ever noticed how quick people are to react? A small comment, and they explode. A tiny setback, and they collapse. Why? Because they never trained their minds to pause. They live in reaction, and a person who lives in reaction is a puppet, controlled by everything outside of them. One insult controls their mood. One failure controls their purpose. One opinion controls their identity. That is weakness. Not because they don't feel, but because they have no mastery over what they feel. You have to build a mind that's strong enough to say, I feel this, but I will not become this. You can feel anger, but not become anger. You can feel fear, but not be led by fear. That is mental strength. That is emotional maturity. That is what separates warriors from victims. You can lose everything in the physical world, but if your mind is trained, you will always rise again, because the outer world bends to the one who controls the inner world. I'll share something personal. I faced rejection. I faced racism. I faced doubt. People tried to box me in, label me, break me. They told me I couldn't be a star, couldn't be a philosopher, couldn't be me. But I didn't fight them with noise. I fought them with discipline. I trained harder. I studied deeper. I controlled my energy. I didn't let their words live in my head rent-free. I chose to live from the inside out, not the outside in. That's why I succeeded. Not because life was easy, but because I was harder to break than the storms that came at me. You want real control? Then start where it matters. Right now in your own mind. Observe your thoughts. Question your habits. Learn your triggers. Sit in silence and study your own chaos. Because if you don't face it, it will face you over and over. In relationships, in business, in the mirror. And if you don't have command over yourself, you'll keep falling for the same traps, making the same mistakes, losing the same battles. Not because you're weak, but because you're unaware. Here's the truth. Every time you pause instead of react, you grow. Every time you breathe instead of explode, you rise. Every time you act from vision instead of emotion, you become more than human. You become master, not of the world, not of others, but of yourself. And once you reach that point where nothing outside you owns you, you are free, truly free. Think of a mountain. It doesn't move for the wind. It doesn't tremble for the storm. It simply stands. That's how you must become. grounded, solid, silent, so that when chaos rises, when enemies plot, when the world goes mad, you remain steady. You observe, you decide, you move with clarity, not confusion. And from that still center, you dominate, not because you're reacting to the world, but because the world starts reacting to you. You've heard me say it before, be like water. But now, I'll add to it. Be like still water with fire beneath it. Calm on the surface, but burning with focus, with strength, with purpose underneath. That balance is what makes you untouchable. So how do you train for this? You build habits that shape your mind. You wake up early, not just to win the morning, but to win yourself. You practice silence, not to escape the world, but to hear your own thoughts. You move your body, not for show, but to align your energy. You journal your pain, you reflect on your reactions. You watch your impulses like a master watches an enemy. Every moment becomes a dojo, every challenge a sparring partner, every emotion a test. And you rise by choosing control again and again until it becomes who you are. Let others chase status. Let them chase noise. You chase mastery. Let them argue. Let them show off. You stay calm. You stay focused. You stay grounded because you know the world outside doesn't need to change. You do. And once you control what's inside, you don't have to fight the outside. You simply command it. That is the highest level. That is the final form. Not dominance over others, but dominance over self. So here's your final instruction. Don't chase control out there. Win it in here, in your mind, in your breath, in your daily choices. Build yourself from the inside out, because when your mind becomes unshakable, no challenge, no enemy, no storm can touch you. Control the inner battle, and the outer world will follow. You've walked through the 9 rules, not tricks, not tactics, but principles, ways of living, ways of being. And if you've listened closely, if you've felt each one, you now carry something far more dangerous than technique. You carry presence. You carry power without noise, discipline without display, strategy without exposure. That is the way of the silent warrior. Don't just memorize these rules, become them. Let your silence be your strength. Let your stillness be your weapon. Let your patience cut deeper than any blade. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to fight to win. You don't need the world to see you, because when you master yourself, the world has no choice but to feel you. Rule by rule, you've been building something no one can take from you. A mind that's calm under pressure. A heart that doesn't beg for attention. A presence that doesn't chase control. Because it is control. You've learned to observe without reacting, to strike without warning, to disappear without weakness, and to dominate without being seen. You are no longer trying to win the world. You've become a force that the world must adjust to. That is mastery. That is freedom. The man who can remain still while others panic, who can stay silent while others shout, who can watch without being pulled into the storm, is the most powerful man in any room. Because he's not controlled by the world, he controls himself. And that, my friend, is the ultimate victory, not in beating others, but in becoming untouchable from within. Now step forward, not louder but sharper, not to prove but to express. Walk with the presence of one who has trained in silence, moved in stillness, waited with discipline, and now leads with quiet power. Be water, be invisible, be unshakable, and never forget the greatest warriors win without fighting.